Hey everybody, this is John from Bash, and today I am bringing you another Entitled Parents Reddit video. If you are new to the channel, then subscribe and ring that notification bell so you don't miss out on the fun. In our first story, an entitled mother believes she has the authority to police her local supermarket. Let's jump right in. I'm not going to do the caste stuff, it's all a bit cringe to be honest. I have just started university in Swansea, which is in Wales in the UK. I live and grew up in London, England, and we don't get many Karens in the UK, especially in London, because people just don't have time for that stuff. That being said, I would have expected for it to be more likely to have this interaction in London as opposed to Swansea. When I came here, I assumed that being a predominantly white area, I would encounter some racism being of South Asian descent with brown skin. But I was pleasantly surprised to find everyone is really nice and helpful and much more welcoming than London. There was one incident though in a Beefeater restaurant where everyone was staring at me as I moved about, and I definitely felt these xenophobic vibes. Beefeater's like a weird restaurant with a bar attached to a 3-star hotel chain in the UK. Anyway, I'm at the big Tesco in town, supermarket chain the company owns Fresh and Easy in the US, and I'm buying some food and homewares like frying pans and stuff, and with that I'm buying a load of alcohol for the flat. I'm talking 2 bottles of Bailey's, large bottles of vodka and white rum, Disaronno, an 18-pack of Corona, Jägermeister, as well as Coke, Red Bull, and soda water. It's not enough to fill a bar, but still a fair bit for one person to buy. As I'm paying at the till, I have my driving license as ID ready to show the cashier. I'm 19, yet I have a pretty babyish face and I'm pretty small, so I always expect to get ID'd. But for some reason the guy doesn't ask to see my ID and I pay and start loading my shopping back into my trolley. As I'm doing so, the woman behind me with her teenager, maybe 15 to 17 years old, starts speaking to the cashier. She was English, not Welsh, and the tone of her voice told me everything I needed to know immediately. Karen alert. She starts whining at and scolding him, asking why he didn't check my ID. The young cashier also seemed to realize this wasn't going to be a fun interaction, and responds saying that I've shopped here before and he knows that I am of age. I don't know if that was BS or not, though, because I don't recall seeing him before. The woman continues to berate him, telling him it sets a bad example to her kid because it shows him that he can get away with buying drinks underage and using fake IDs. If you see a situation like that, just teach your son not to do that. Don't come at me when you know no facts. At this point, I'm done loading my shopping and decide not to engage and leave. She instantly forgets the cashier and blocks my way, asking me to show her my ID and my bank card. I politely tell her she has no right, and she then loses her stuff. She doesn't scream or raise her voice significantly, but her tone becomes incredibly aggressive, and she starts pointing her finger at me and accusing me of buying alcohol whilst underage. I tell her I am of age and have every right to purchase what I just did, and if she has an issue, she can go find the manager because she, a fellow customer in the store, has no jurisdiction over me. The cashier himself decides to call for a manager and apologizes to me. I notice the kid now and he gives me a stern look, but I'm pretty sure it was just to side with his mom, and that he was also uncomfortable about the whole ordeal. The manager comes over and asks the cashier what's wrong, and lo and behold, the unbearable witch interrupts the lad and starts berating the manager. The manager listens a little, stops her for a sec, and turns to me and asks for ID. I give it to him, he checks it, he's happy, but as he goes to hand it back, the woman snaps at him with an expectant look on her face and says something like, "Sorry, but I'd like to check it myself." Not even a please. He gives it back to me anyway, which triggers a visible storm of anger within her, and she then proceeds to block his way and starts scolding him about poor customer service, illegal business activity, etc. The cashier tells me to leave, and I do so because it's 9 p.m. and I really can't be arsed to deal with this. I hope that woman was kicked out or something, and if so, I'm sad I didn't witness it, but dear God, I feel sorry for that poor kid. In story 2, an entitled mother demands her baby be allowed to pet the dog. I had an eventful Christmas between toxic family members and this situation. Lord knows I'm ready for 2021. The cast is me, the sarcastic smart aleck who was not in the mood for BS, my wife, a mega hot sexy lady who I love dearly, Miles the dog, Samson the dog, an entitled mom, an entitled brat around 8 years old, an entitled elder brat who was around 14, Gramps who is walking on thin ice with me, but in this situation, he was appreciated. So after an incredibly toxic family dinner, my wife and I decided to take our dogs on a walk. I have 2 dogs and both of them are rescues. The first one, named Miles, is Chonkmeister Supreme, super patient and super kind. The other dog, named Samson, is an anxious mess. He was abused and he barks at random strangers. He is a sweet boy, but we've been working on leash aggression. Anyway, we began our walk around our neighborhood when my wife realized she forgot something. She had Samson and quickly ran inside to grab it. I believe it was gloves. It was cold outside. Don't quote me on that. As I'm waiting in our driveway, the entitled mother and entitled brat walk by. It starts off as a normal neighborly talk, and then we wish a Merry Christmas. The entitled brat stops and pets Miles, which is completely fine with me. Miles likes attention, and he is a sweet dog who can handle it. The entitled mother continues talking when I hear a bark coming from our front door. I turn and my wife is standing in the doorway. She sees the entitled mother and the entitled brat and goes back in the house and waits for them to leave. That's always our routine with Samson, as he needs a minute to get used to being on his leash. The entitled brat saw my other dog and ran over to the glass door to look at him. Samson is losing his stuff behind the glass, and I quickly run over and try to explain the normal he had a bad owner before we adopted him, so he is scared. The kid didn't care. He wanted to see Samson and he demanded to see him now. He put his hand on the doorknob to try and open it, and I lightly pushed his hand off it. The entitled mother ran over, and I expected her to explain to her kid why he couldn't just open up someone's door, especially during a pandemic, but instead she yells at me for pushing his hand off. I was taken aback, but apologized nonetheless. I just wanted them to get away from the door. The little boy kept screaming he wanted to see Samson, and I was trying to explain to the mom why that wasn't possible when she crossed her arms and frowned. If he's so violent, maybe I should just call animal control. At this point, my mood is terrible. I look at the woman and tell her that she can get off my property now and have a Merry Christmas. She rolls her eyes and takes the entitled brat by the hand and walks to the street. She stands right off my driveway and crosses her arms and tells me that if I bring that dog out and it barks, she's going to call animal control. The entitled brat is still screaming for the dog, and I just look at my wife defeated. I felt like this is the type of woman who would follow us on the walk just to be petty. So I walked back into the house, took my dogs off the harnesses, and my wife and I went on our walk without them. That was fine. When we got back, however, my grandfather is screaming at someone. My wife and I run over to see our back gate open. Entitled brat and entitled elder brat, who is new, so sorry if that's confusing, were standing at the gate of our backyard with my grandpa standing between them. They had a super soaker and were wanting to spray our dogs for being mean dogs. I took the water gun from them and broke it. Then I tossed it into the street. Probably overdramatic, but if Samson was back there when they were sneaking back, this could have gone really wrong. They ran off crying, and the entitled mother came waddling back to our house. We wouldn't answer the door, and so she stayed on our porch for 30 minutes and demanded we buy a new super soaker for her kids. When she finally left, she threatened to crack our gate open in the middle of the night so the dogs would get out. Thankfully, my wife had the right mind to record this, so if anything happens, we can bring it to the authorities. All this to say, please just listen to people when they're working with a reactive dog. Hope everyone here had a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. My update is that I did buy a lock this morning that's securely on there as we speak. I bought Samson and Miles a treat because cute, and I was almost tempted to buy a super soaker and spray them if I ever see them walking around, just to have it locked and loaded. However, I reminded myself I'm an adult and don't want to stir drama. Hopefully, this is the last story of the entitled mother, the entitled brat, and the entitled elder brat. This is John from /bash. Please hit that like button to help with the almighty YouTube algorithm, it really helps, and subscribe if you're new. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one.